Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Project Positive Planet webinar series. Today is Travel Tuesday, and we are on with a good friend of mine, Sallie, who will be co-hosting this every Tuesday. And we thought it'd be great to talk about the wellness tourism industry and some amazing properties that we've been to and what made them amazing. So welcome, ladies. Welcome, Chris. Welcome, Jody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. This is so exciting to be here. And I can think of nothing I'd rather talk about today than wellness travel with both Jackie and Chris. So would you like to get us started and set us up, Stephanie, and then we'll just run with it?
Perfect. So the series is entitled Keep Travel Dreaming, Plan Your Future Wellness Business. And I will let Sallie tell you a little bit about herself.
Well, let me just start by saying that this photograph, which is not my usual corporate photograph, was taken at Miraval, actually, in 2014, where I participated. I think we'll hear a little bit more about Miraval later from Chris, but I participated in something called an unforgettable canvas. And I do have to say it was an unforgettable experience, and I thought this was kind of a fun photo. For those of you who don't know me, I have spent the last 16 years in the spa and wellness industry. I spent quite a bit of that time at SpaFinder, which some of you may know was the world's largest marketing company for spa and wellness. I also spent some time at the Global Wellness Summit. And since late 2014, I've had my own business, which is called the Mind, Body, Spirit Network. And I do an awful lot of consulting in the wellness tourism and wellness travel arena. And I've had the very good fortune to work with both Chris Torgerson and Jackie Roby, who are joining us today. I'm just delighted to be here to talk about one of my favorite subjects. So, I guess we're going to get introductions for Chris and Jackie a little bit later, but let me jump in and talk a little bit about what wellness tourism actually is. And when we use the term wellness tourism, I think of that as an industry term, and I think of the consumer equivalent as wellness travel. So wellness tourism is actually defined by the Global Wellness Institute as traveling for the purpose of improving or maintaining one's health and well-being. And those key differences are improving one's health versus maintaining. And one can do this a lot of different ways. And I really love this graphic because it touches upon so many different modalities that exist out there that one can experience when participating in wellness travel. So wellness tourism covers such a broad range, as you can see here. And maybe in the course of this series, we'll touch upon every single one of these categories. Today, I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about urban healthy hotels and spas and weekend retreats and things like thermal experiences, possibly even Temescal. But as you can see, wellness tourism also covers traditional Chinese medicine. It covers onsens, which of course are indigenous to Japan. It covers banyas, which you can have all over the world, but are indigenous to Russia. There's such a broad range of wellness tourism experiences to be had, and it is my personal goal to experience every single one of these. Stephanie, do you want to add anything to that?
I think that's beautifully said.
Okay, well then let's talk a little bit about what makes a destination unique. I think that this is really a very interesting point because spa and wellness traditions exist all over the world, and many of the spa and wellness traditions that we now experience wherever we travel to have ancient roots. Not all of them, but many. So for example, Ayurveda and yoga and meditation are indigenous to India, and they're very ancient practices, but they've been transported all over the world, and now one can experience Ayurveda, yoga, meditation in so many different ways. And I think later on when we hear from Jackie and Chris, they'll tell us a little bit more perhaps how they've seen some of that play out in some of the places that they have, they're going to talk to us about today. So what's important here to understand is how the sort of roots of wellness tourism and spa are very deep. So, you know, some other notable things on here that pop out for me are things like thermal, hydrothermal, and mineral water experiences. Now, that is something, for example, that you might experience in France, let's say, where thalassotherapy, and, you know, originated, but also in places like the Dead Sea, where just going and visiting the Dead Sea, you'll have an experience of floating in that salt water. For example, some other things, Temescal, which I mentioned a little bit earlier, which is native to Mexico. It's sweat lodge, a sweat lodge experience done in a very specific kind of structure. But Temescal, which originated in Mexico, now has morphed into sweat lodge experiences of different kinds that you might see. Then, for example, another very well-known modality that we're all familiar with is sauna, which is believed to have originated in Finland. And is very much a part of the Nordic experience, and yet, you know, there are places all over the world where you'll go and you'll experience different kinds of saunas. So, and traditional Chinese medicine, which now I think has really taken off, and acupuncture, which, you know, you'll see at so many different spas and wellness resorts throughout the world. Chris or Jackie, is there anything else on this chart that jumps out to you that you want to bring up?
I have to say, looking at the chart, Sally, it's fun to look at it and to think back on the experiences that we've had, and also to think about how the experiences are where, for instance, Temescal originating in Mexico, you see it start to filter to other areas. So, so it's available to so many. So it's a great chart. I love this.
I do too. Okay, so let's keep going, shall we? I'm not going to spend very long on this, but this is an interesting breakdown of wellness tourism by region. What you can see here, this chart is a little tiny bit out of date, but still interesting nonetheless to see that North America is leading the charge of wellness tourism, both as it relates, well, actually as it relates to revenue. But when it relates to the number of visits, you can see that Europe is actually in the first position. And that's really no surprise for anybody who knows and understands that so much of what happens in spa and wellness has taken place in Europe, because up until very recently, and maybe even still now, many governments of European countries actually pay for people to go and have spa vacations. What you might say is taking a course. My German is terrible, but I certainly know in countries like in Eastern Europe, in Germany, in Austria, and several other countries, that people can actually, doctors will say, go to the spa for 2 weeks. And I personally would much rather do that than do anything else, especially as a cure for anything that ails me. And you can see on this chart what wellness tourism expenditures look like by region. This, of course, you know, is all pre-coronavirus, and we have no way of knowing yet what this is going to look like in our post-COVID world, but it's certainly interesting to see what it looked like pre, and I'm sure there will be many, many things coming out about what it's going to look like post, and we'll take a little look into our crystal balls in a few minutes and just give our very humble opinions of what we might be seeing, you know, and both Chris is on the front lines because she runs a travel agency, and Jackie works with many travel advisors, and I think it'll be very interesting to hear both of their perspectives on what regions you may see as, and what that might look like as it relates to our travel recovery. I always love this chart, because one of the things that I frequently talk about is how wellness tourists are high yield tourists. And what that means is basically they stay longer and they spend more. That one could sit there and say, well, why is that? And my personal speculation has been that when you go to a world-class destination spa, and I'm just going to pull out Canyon Ranch since that's the sweatshirt I'm wearing today. So for example, if I go to Canyon ranch, you know, and I'm in that setting, in that environment where I am taking care of my mind, body, and spirit. I know that it certainly makes me be inclined to perhaps treat myself to a sweatshirt or a few extra treatments, or bringing home cookbooks or other products so I can extend my stay. And therefore, that means that what I'm spending while I'm there is on average higher than what the typical tourist might spend on a trip. Jackie or Chris, you wish to add anything to this?
Absolutely. I think when you have the opportunity to be in this scenario at a destination spa with some really great providers and doctors, whether or not they're traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic doctors, functional practitioners, if you're given recommendations in order to increase your health and wellness and your well-being, you're going to want to take that opportunity to cater to your inner self, to your mind, body, and soul, as Sallie was saying, and just keep it as healing as possible. So yeah, I've definitely added on.
Yes, and I can certainly speak from personal experience how many times I've gone to places and definitely, like you just said, Jackie, once I was there, you know, be very moved to do different kinds of services, treatments, therapies, invest in myself because I've already taken that leap to take that kind of trip.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's see what we can tell you next. Oh my goodness. Let's do a little travel dreaming and planning. So I actually would prefer to not be talking this much, but we'll be coming to Chris and to Jackie shortly. We thought it might be fun to spend a little time talking. Each one of us picked a few properties, and we thought it would be fun to just tell you a little bit about these experiences. I intentionally selected a couple of properties in the United States because it is my belief, and we'll come into this in a few minutes, that when travel recovers, I don't think this is any epiphany, but that the likelihood is it will be hyperlocal because all of us will initially feel most comfortable traveling someplace closer by. I think the concept, as much as I dream of going to Thailand and Bhutan and Africa, I think the reality of getting on an 18-hour plane ride from New York is going to take a while before it actually materializes. Although I will say that I do have a trip planned to Portugal in October, and I'm holding on to that. But I wanted to talk a little bit about a few properties that were closer in and one that isn't, and Jackie will do the same, as will Chris. And when I was just sort of thinking about it, CHATHAM Bars Inn popped into my mind first and foremost. And I think the reason is because it's not that far from New York, and I happen to be in New York. CHATHAM Bars Inn is in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. And I actually had never been to Cape Cod until a few years ago, which is kind of surprising because I often find that we travelers often tend to go very far away and don't necessarily always pay attention to what's closer in to us. And I just was so blown away by the beauty of Cape Cod. And CHATHAM Bars Inn is right on the Atlantic Ocean. It's beautifully situated where you can sit in an Adirondack chair and bring your glass of wine if you wish, or your mocktail or smoothie and your journal, and just look at the Atlantic Ocean and all the wildlife, the birds and the boats, which is not wildlife, and just really enjoy that setting. The spa itself is beautiful. They had some amazing spa facials that I enjoyed immensely, as well as incredible body treatments using some indigenous products, seaweed. They happen to use another line. I love Osea because they're on the ocean, and that's an ocean-oriented line. The cuisine at CHATHAM Bars. So when I think of wellness tourism and wellness travel, to me, it often maps into the spa, it maps into movement and fitness, and it maps into the cuisine, as well as a few other other surrounding experiences that would probably be sleep, access to nature, spiritual pursuits. But for me, the cuisine at Chatham Bars Inn is something that blew me away. I had an experience I will never forget. They own a farm 6 miles from the property, and they did a farmhouse dinner that I was lucky enough to attend, where we actually sat in the farm, in the middle of the rows of crops. So to have a big, huge table set up, there were about 40 of us, and the crops were growing around us. And the chef had prepared a meal, of course, using all sorts of things from the farm. And the seafood that we had was all locally caught there, right in Cape Cod. The oysters were, were local, right, Chatham. It was just an extraordinary meal that I will never forget. And as a big foodie, that's often an experience that I take away. From a movement fitness point of view, we did yoga at the farm. So there was a greenhouse there, and we actually did yoga in the greenhouse. And I found that as a setting to be really inspiring. So this was just a wonderful wellness resort experience. Jackie, I think you've been there too. Did you want to add something?
I did, actually, yes. So first of all, the oysters and such are caught on their pier. They own the pier. And there's a sushi restaurant in town that is phenomenal, and they use the fish caught from, and the seafood caught from the Chatham Bars Inn pier. So I thought that was really neat. And then at the spa, they use the lavender from the farm to create this beautiful body cream. I actually have one that I keep in my purse, and then a big one that I hide from my family so that I can save it, but it's extraordinary.
And, I think it's interesting to note when we talk about these travel experiences is what you bring home with you, both as a memory and as a physical emblem, if you will, or a physical embodiment, like that lavender body scrub or cream. Let's go to the next place. I can't even remember what else I've been fantasizing about. Oh, Mohonk Mountain House in New Paltz. Chris or Jackie, do either one of you want to jump in on this first before I rhapsodize about Mohonk? Nope. Okay. Okay.
I had to grab my audio. So I haven't been to Mohonk. It's on my top 5 list. The team is incredible, and clients that we've sent there come back raving about it. So take it away, Sallie.
So Mohonk is close to where I live. So it's only maybe under an hour and a half away from where I live. So it's a place that I'm probably going to be one of the first places I go to once I'm able to travel again. I actually am keeping a short list of about 5 or 6 properties that are 5 hours or less drive from where I live. This is one of the closest properties, and I have been to Mohonk already, but I definitely look forward to returning. Probably one of the most notable experiences for me with Mohonk is forest bathing. And Mohonk has incredible hiking. And what's unique about Mohonk is they have acres and acres and acres of land that they own. And they have hikes where you hike from summer house to summer house. And if you've never experienced that, what those are little structures that were built in the middle of the forest where as you hike, you can stop and have a little respite. And when I did this hike, I happened to be fortunate enough to do it with Nina Smiley, who is part of the family that owns Mohonk, and she is a meditation specialist. And we hiked and stopped at each summer house and did a little short meditation. And it truly, for me, was just a very profound experience being in the forest, enjoying nature. It was so gorgeous. And then having these little breaks where we meditated. I will also say that I was beyond impressed by the spa at Mohonk. In fact, one of the things with all of my wellness travel experience, one of the things that I find that I take away is I often remember spa therapists, especially if they've given me a good treatment. And I had a massage with the lead therapist named Michael there, who it was just off the charts. It was an extraordinary massage. And I bought one of my favorite products ever that I still use to this day. I bought at Mohonk. I sound like a commercial, but I get nothing from this, but I like to share products that I love because, you know, it might help you all. I bought a product there called Yoga Balm that I actually just used the other night because my back was killing me. It's an amazing product. And it was the first time I ever saw it. I saw it at Mohonk. This was about just about 4 years ago. And I just love that. But the Mohonk experience, it really, for something that is so close to where I live, and they have this gorgeous lake where you can go take boats out. There's just so many elements to Mohonk that are special.
Sally, just another quick note on Mohonk. They have fantastic women's weekends. And so they create and design weekend programs really dedicated towards women and what they might like. And so that's kind of a fun if you're trying to put together a group close to New York and a great getaway for women.
That's excellent. Maybe all of us should go, and we should get a whole bunch of other women to join us, and we'll have our own women's wellness weekend. Okay, that sounds great. By the way, I did want to mention that Mohonk Spa was renovated a few years ago, and the renovation was, it's probably been more than a few years now, but it's extraordinarily beautiful the way they renovated it. I also happen to know that they've been working on their cuisine. I actually went to Mohonk for the very first time 34 years ago. Which is really a long time, but the food that was not, you know, their high point back then. But what I will say is, having gone back a few times since in the past 34 years, and most recently 4 years ago, the food has really gotten quite good, and they have a lot of selection for vegan, vegetarian, you know, as well as all different kinds of dietary interests. I mean, if you love a good steak, you can get a good steak. If you want a vegan meal, you can get a vegan meal. And I think they've done a really good job on their cuisine. But I know what I'm going to talk about next, because I remember now. Oh boy, just looking at that water makes me calm. And this is probably a place that you've been to, Stephanie, yes? Oh, I can't hear you.
Yes, it is.
Yes, why don't you talk about your experience at Parrot Key first, and then I'll talk about mine, because I'm getting tired of hearing my own voice.
So I was lucky enough to live in Turks and Caicos for 4 years. Parrot Key is a tiny little island. You fly into Providenciales, and you can either go by private plane or you can go by ferry. And it's one of the most amazing experiences ever. The water is unreal. It's like unlike any water you've ever seen before. They also have a focus throughout the resort, as Sallie mentioned before, on wellness. So it's integrated through all of the activities, their cuisine. They have a beautiful brunch. Some days we would just go for brunch and fresh juices and healthy food and paddleboard, and then go to the spa for an Ayurvedic treatment. It's definitely on the top 5 of my entire lifetime experiences.
I loved Parrot Key too. I dream of returning there. Parrot Key is part of Como Resorts. For those who are not familiar with Como Resorts, they really have a very strong focus on wellness, and they really, really know what they're doing, in my humble opinion, when it comes to wellness. I agree with everything you said, Stephanie. Some of the other things that jumped out for me, they have beautiful yoga. They really are known, I think, in some ways for yoga at Parrot Key. They have quite an extensive, their whole spa, at least when I was there, is Ayurvedic. And I started my time there with an Ayurvedic consultation with their Ayurvedic doctor, who I believe her name was Dr. Saraswati. I could look it up. It was quite a while ago, but it was a really great consultation. I had, again, one of the most memorable treatments of my life there, a hot stone massage that was unlike any other hot stone massage I've experienced anywhere in the world. The therapist, who I believe was from Bali, I have a lot of Asian therapists there, used a technique with the stones that was, we don't have enough time on this webinar for me to explain. It was so extraordinary. It was so beautifully choreographed, so expertly expertly executed that, I mean, to this day, I have never had another hot stone massage that comes close to this one. I will also say that the Como Shambhala cuisine was off the charts delicious. You know, everybody has their own point of view on spa cuisine, wellness cuisine. In my opinion, this was some of the most tasty. I mean, I did not feel like I was being deprived of anything. If anything, I felt like it was among the best, most world-class food I've ever had. And of course, the rooms, even, you know, at Parrot Key, they have villas, they have, you know, rooms of all categories. What I loved was the room that I stayed in, which was not the top of the line room. It was probably the second room category. It was so beautiful. It was so simple. It was designed so that you could really almost feel like you were retreating into your own little sanctuary. It was very white and very peaceful and very calm. And I just remember feeling that very intensely while I was there. So I do hope I get to return to Turks and Caicos someday, Stephanie, and maybe you'll take me to a few places and I'll get to return to Parrot Key.
We will make a plan.
Okay, let's keep going. I think Jackie, why don't you tell us a little bit about you?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Jackie Roby. I am the Chief Excellence Officer of Inspire Journey Consulting, my own business, and I just thought titles can be really boring, so mine should be fun. I focus everything I do on wellness tourism, and live in Boston, so I'll talk a little bit about that. I'm actually somebody who doesn't love to drive, so getting to destinations close by are usually kind of an adventure. I'm not on the T. So yeah, I'm good to move forward.
Jackie's going to tell us a little bit about a couple of her favorite properties. And I may jump in because I will say that total coincidence, but I've been to every property that we're going to talk about on this, webinar today.
Yeah, so I wanted to start with the Retreat Costa Rica. I love this property. It is on top of a crystal mountain in Atenas, so it's about 40 minutes from the San Jose airport. Every detail is incredibly thoughtful. For example, if you talk about your guest room experience, there's only 13 rooms here. And each room has a selenite crystal and a diffuser of thieves in order to set the right energy. So the minute that you're walking in, your room is really energetically prepared for you. And each of the treatment rooms at the spa are done in the same way. The food, so the retreat itself was created by Diana Stobo, who is a celebrity chef, author, nutritionist, someone who's healed herself with food. So what I love about that, for all of us who love food, right, some people, I think most people live to eat, but maybe that's just me, is that you know that it's going to taste really good because she likes to eat. I remember when we met and she told me that she had really good chocolate and I was craving and dying for chocolate. So there's special pieces of that. So you know that every meal is going to really just have something distinct, healthy. You're going to try options that you never knew existed. And could taste so incredible.
They grow so much of what they use at the Retreat Costa Rica. I saw that little garden literally steps away from where we were eating. And maybe also, Jackie, one of the other things about the food, because you and I share the love of food, was the fact that at the retreat, the kitchen is open, which is very unusual, that you can actually go into the kitchen and watch the chefs all day long. They're making fresh almond milk, they're making fresh hemp milk, or I don't even know what. They're making, you watch them prepare your meals and you're literally able to just, see it all happen.
Absolutely. And one of the outings that you can participate in as well is going to the farmer's market with chef. And he'll show you, like, this is where I buy all of my herbs. So everything that isn't, made at the farm, which honestly, on property, even the coffee is harvested there. The rest is going to be local, sustainable, picked up at the farmer's market, working with local vendors. So it's a really beautiful concept. And there are cooking classes, so you can take your skills home. So those are some of my favorite things. Treatment-wise, I had, there is an Ayurvedic doctor on staff. I know we've talked a bit about Ayurveda already, but I had an Abhyanga, two-handed Abhyanga treatment. And, you know, you're on this wood table. It is using beautiful herbal oils. And while it is body work, it's also energy work to balance your chakras. And for me, I do this thing sometimes where like my arm will, you know, kind of jet out, or my leg will kick during these treatments. And I always think maybe I was falling asleep, but I was awake. And what the healers have told me at the retreat is I'm releasing all of this negative energy, all of these negative thoughts that are going through my head that aren't true, those things we tell ourselves that we don't need to hear. That's what's being released in these moments. I had some incredible healing moments within treatments there that I walked out feeling whole.
Yeah, that's really such a great point, because I think when we think about the future of wellness travel, and travel in general, you know, going to places that can help us to heal, that can help us strengthen our immune systems, that can help us manage stress, which we all have. It's just a question of how we deal with it. There is such huge value to all of us, you know, who are in the travel business, and all of our potential clients and people out there who will get to experience this. Yeah. Want to tell us about your next property you're dreaming of?
Absolutely.
Get that. Wearing my sweatshirt.
Canyon Ranch. So Canyon Ranch is my driving distance location, because being in Boston, it's about 2.5 hours from me. So when Chris had actually created my trip for me, which I'm very grateful for. And when I went to Canyon Ranch for my very first wellness getaway, it was an escape like no other. I didn't know what to expect. I just knew that I needed it, and it was for me. And similar to what Sallie was saying earlier about adding things into your schedule and maybe spending a bit more than you typically would on the vacation where you're buying shots. We still do that, right? Then I invested in me. And what I love about, you know, Canyon Ranch was all of the different things that you could do and try that you've never done before. I did a morning walk. It was called a therapy walk, I think, where you got up and you actually were walking a few miles with a therapist who picked a topic and, you know, discussed it with you. And for me, it was just the two of us that morning. And he said, do you want to do a session, or do you want me to do a topic? I said, don't, just do a topic, please. So he talked about stress management and ways that we are, stories that we tell ourselves that aren't true, seeing a theme here, and how to break out of our own way and the traditions of that. But I thought that was so different and unique, and I loved that piece. I remember food-wise, my very first meal there, and the server, I said, what should I drink? I don't know. And there's no alcohol. And he said, oh, I love this lemon mint mocktail that we have it was like just fresh lemon, fresh mint, and soda water. And he said, but I like to add fresh ginger. They don't have it on the menu, but I like that. And he's like, I could do that if you wanted. I said, yes. And it was one of the best tasting things I've ever had. So I keep that in mind as some of the beautiful experiences there. They have all of their meals that are inclusive in their rates, as does the retreat. And, you know, Canyon Ranch has different restaurants and snacks and things that you can get throughout the day. There's classes, you can try new things all day. And I also took the time to meet with somebody who did life mapping. And for me, that was really a beautiful experience too, to help me get over humps of in my life that I didn't know how to work with before. As much as I work on myself, these were things I needed help with, and it was really a fantastic experience.
Yeah, I think part of the dreaming combined with the planning of all this is, you know, dreaming of all these different experiences. And, you know, I want to just say that both Canyon Ranch and the Retreat Costa Rica are what I call destination spas, or full immersive wellness experiences, meaning that, you know, much of the experience there is included, not all, but a lot of it. And for anybody who has never had the opportunity to experience a destination spa, to me, that is the heart and soul of wellness travel. Now I think we're going to give Chris a chance to speak. Thank you so much, Jackie, for sharing all of that.
Still me.
Jackie has one more.
It's still me.
Jackie has
But I'll quickly go through it.
This is another amazing place that I love. Go ahead, Jackie. Yay.
Yeah, so Banyan Tree MAYAKOBA, right by Riviera Maya, is it's out of this world extraordinary, and it is a resort with incredible wellness offerings, very similar to CHATHAM Bars Inn in that way. And besides the food piece, because sometimes, you never know when you go to a destination what the resort food will be like. And as we talked about the love of food, there's just nothing that isn't exceptional in the food offered at Banyan Tree. But what the spa experience was mind-blowing. It was, the first 2 days my husband and I had spent alone on a vacation in forever. And we did this before a wedding, and I signed us up for the rainforest indulgence that you can do on your own or you can do as a couple. So we did it as a couple, and it took us through a hydrotherapy circuit. We had body scrubs with a Vichy massage. Then we had actual massages, and prior to even starting the experience, we got to choose our scent. And so I remember choosing a rose scented candle, and that candle is what was used during our massage at the very end in this beautiful private room. And it's unforgettable. I can't wait to go back.
Yeah, I have to say, Banyan Tree MAYAKOBA was a place that I actually went to with my husband, which is, I have actually managed to get into a few beautiful wellness resorts around the world. And I loved the architecture of the rooms and the private pools, the outdoor showers, the fact that we had our own bicycles. I mean, it was truly an extraordinary experience. I want to just take a question now because I see that there is a question. Maybe Jackie will mute you for a minute, and I'll just answer a question. And I want to say that this question comes from one of my favorite people, Rocco Bova, who is a general manager of Papilia in Chochala, Mexico, a place that I could talk about for a very long time. And Rocco wanted to know if anybody on the panel knows of any resorts that are already receiving requests for future bookings. So I'm going to ask both that question of Jackie and Chris, but I'm going to just answer it first by saying, Rocco, I just recently booked myself into Six Senses Douro Valley in Portugal, and they accepted my booking. So, it's hard to say whether that will actually happen in October or not. I'm certainly hopeful. I have not personally booked anything else yet. I'm thinking about it and keeping my eye on where I might be able to book. I personally don't know anyone else, too many other people that have made specific bookings yet, but I would like to know, Jackie and Chris, what you all are seeing in terms of future bookings.
Sure, I can jump in. So I've got, we're starting to see people looking towards the fall. Even if locations aren't open, they're still accepting bookings. I've got a couple scheduled for Greece in September, and I've got two couples scheduled for the Maldives. Actually, one is in September and one is in December. One thing that we are seeing is relapsed cancellation or / rebooking clauses that those properties are working with us on. So, if somebody has to make a change due to what's happening, we'll be able to do that, and the clients won't take a hit. So, which is huge for the clients to go ahead and book, knowing that if we have to change it, we can. So that's what we're seeing.
Jackie, what do you see in terms of, are you seeing any bookings?
Yeah, actually, yes. I've heard from the retreat that there's bookings into Costa Rica. There's been inquiries for June and July for that early, which is really interesting. And then domestically, their thoughts into the summer.
Yeah, if there's anybody else on the call that is seeing anything relating to bookings and you want to put it in the chat, we'd appreciate it. I also am hoping to do my own outreach soon to some of the local properties to see if I'm even able to find out if they are accepting bookings yet. But now let's move on to Chris, and I'd love you to introduce yourself, Chris, and tell us about the properties you're dreaming about.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm Chris Torgerson. It's great to be here today. Thank you, Sallie, and Stephanie, and Jackie, of course. I was with Travel Leaders for 20 plus years, most recently in their luxury hotel division. And that's where Sallie and I first connected as we built and rolled out the Select Wellness Collection. About 2.5 years ago, I left Travel Leaders and started my own agency, Stonar's Travel. And I've been doing that ever since and loving every minute of it. So 2 of the properties I'm going to be talking about today, Sallie and I actually were there together. Sunrise Springs was one of them. It was one of our first, I think we had 6 agents, Sallie. One of our first Select Wellness trainings that we did was at Sunrise Springs. A beautiful location, located in Santa Fe, New Mexico. The thing that's special about Sunrise Springs, I think, well, one thing that's fun about Sunrise Springs is it's the place where if you've heard of people petting and interacting with silky chickens and doing puppy play, Sunrise Springs is the spot. And silky chickens are a real thing. We were able to experience the medicine wheel, which is actually led by a very special therapist by the name of Michael Schroeder. And it's based, all of Sunrise Springs, their different modalities really are based in Native American culture and theme. The food, to Jackie's point, in all 3 that I'm going to be talking about, food was incredible, including at Sunrise Springs. It was I loved our space, Sallie, that we had. Our rooms were incredible, very Southwestern, comfortable, neutral colors, great space for journaling, thinking, dreaming, and then experiencing they have, of course, group activities that you can experience. They also have, they've got all of their herbs and vegetables are grown in their gardens. So you can do activities where you create your own herbal teas. Their spa was fantastic. They have a sister property called Hock Caliente. And and that's an area where you can go and experience thermal spas. Sunrise Springs now has soaking. Sallie, do you remember when we were there? We saw kind of what they were hoping to do with the pods, the soaking pods.
I went back actually. I went back and I experienced the soaking pods a year later, and I also went to Ojo Caliente. So Ojo Caliente is a very big, broad selection of different kinds of thermal and thermal spring experiences. Sunrise Springs is a much more higher end, elegant experience. And I thank you for bringing up the silky chickens, because that definitely was a very memorable experience, holding and petting and interacting with those silky chickens. Yeah.
Yeah, something that I had never done before. Even though I'm on the hobby farm, I've never interacted with the silky chickens. So it was
yeah, that was very special. Tell us about your next, the next place.
Let's go to the next one. Let's see, I'm not even sure which one it is. Mirabelle. Okay, so this is hilarious because Stephanie and I hadn't even talked about what pictures and images are going to be used. And one of my favorite experiences that was actually a fail, if you can say that, was the aerial yoga, because I tried it. And the thing about Mirabelle is they have so many experiences that you can elect to try as you're kind of peeling back the layers and looking inside of yourself. And I'm all about trying something new. And this was new for me. Lots of giggles, and I enjoyed it immensely because, again, it was something outside of my comfort zone, right? Which I think at destination spas and retreats, I think that that's something really fun to be able to experience, are things that are outside of your comfort zone. One of my favorites, well, I had many favorite things at Mirabelle, but one was taking a hike out into the mountains. Miraval is set actually in the Catalina Mountains of Tucson. And we hiked into the mountains, did a yoga treatment on the boulders, and then we hiked back in silence, which was really an incredible experience. As you kind of go through all the feelings of walking with a group of people and not speaking. And I think there's a lot that we all have caught up in talking and filling the silence. And so that was an incredible experience. The food at Miraval is incredible. One thing that all of us, I think, as wellness traveler advisors need to remember is that you need to, it's really important to match your clients to the right property. Where Canyon Ranch, alcohol is not a part of their program, at Miraval, it's an option. So you don't want to send somebody that might want to have a glass of wine to a location where it's absolutely off the chart and not accessible, but at Miraval, it's an option. So
that's a really very good point. Oops, I'm sorry, my phone is ringing. I'll turn this off.
It's so good, Sal. Okay, so I'll keep talking. So Miraval, again, fantastic experience. They also have a great, speaking of spending additional, choosing to spend additional monies while you're at a location. Two things about Miraval. They have an incredible chef experience where you create a signature appetizer and cocktail with the chef, small group, really fun. And one of my probably favorite things is that Miraval has late spa hours. And in my opinion, there's nothing like being able to do a 9 o'clock massage or facial, and then going back to your room for just an incredible night's sleep. Not all locations have such late hours, and I really appreciated that at Miraval.
I would agree. I've always loved doing that one night, just having a massage, keeping the massage oil on, and then falling asleep. What I was going to say, my phone was ringing. I didn't want everybody to have to hear my home phone ringing. Was this concept of we're doing some dreaming here, dreaming of places we've been to, but also in terms of planning, the things that you bring up, which, in the future, the idea of planning how you want your experience to be, what you want your experience to look like, how you want it to feel. And obviously, travel advisors are just instrumental in helping with that. But whether you work with a travel advisor, which I think is always a wonderful thing, or you do things on your own, which can also be a wonderful thing, this really illustrates spending the time to not only dream about what we're looking for when travel begins again, whether you're a property, whether you're a travel advisor, whether you're a spa director, whether you're a consumer, which we all are, is really, not only envisioning that experience, but doing the good planning to make sure you have that kind of experience. I could add so much to Miraval, but I don't want to, have this webinar go on for the rest of our lives. So let's keep going.
Quickly, I just have one more, and it's the spot, the Pulse Maine. Sallie and I were there together as well. Maine has a very special place in my heart. I spent many years as a teen going there with my family to visit family friends. We would go every summer. So going to the spot, the Pulse Maine, was really like going home for me. The spot itself is absolutely beautiful. The relaxation room, which again, great photo because this is one of my favorite spots. It's a happy place for me. But to sit in that beautiful room, and you can see the fireplace in the back, have tea and look out at the waves of the Atlantic crashing against the boulders, it's second to none. Spa at Cliff House, Maine, something really nice to remember about this, it's a great multi-generational location. They have fantastic children's programs. Currently, they're not open. However, they have their drive-through restaurant. They've kind of created that, is open for delicious cuisine and including bone broths that people in the local area can drive through to purchase. Spot Cliff House is about an hour outside of Boston, so it's not a terribly long drive, and really a fantastic experience. very beach feeling as far as the accommodations go, nautical, and yeah, we really enjoyed it. Right, Sal?
They had among the cutest robes I've ever seen in any place I've traveled to. It's funny how I guess we live in an Instagram world, even though I personally try to live in a real world, but we all did have to take pictures with our navy blue and white checked robes. And I do believe there's a picture of you and me in our checked robes, Chris,
Yes.
on Instagram somewhere. But Stephanie, I'd like to bring you in here because we're just right about at the end, and ask you if there's anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to know.
Yes, I would like to know your thoughts on what travel's going to look like moving forward. We're in phase 1 right now, confinement, but we won't be locked in our homes forever. So how do you see travel come back, or what are you hearing from your suppliers, partners, agents?
I'll jump in, Sally. I don't think we can hear you right now, or we couldn't for a second there. Something that, can you hear me, Stephanie? Can you hear me?
Oops, Jackie?
Okay, I'm going to come in.
Yeah, come on. Tell us your thoughts.
We tag teamed. Here I am. I stay in the positive light of what's coming. So I think this is a time where we're all reflecting, where we are all going through different phases of this internalizing, whether it is excitement, fear, sadness, just wanting to lay on the couch in a ball, which I have done. And I think it's going to create this amplified need to leave. Now, obviously, in terms of the when, none of us know. So I'm not going to pretend to predict that. But I know that we're all, on the hotel side, the partners that I work with, from the travel advisors that I work with, everyone is keeping the messaging as hopeful and careful as possible, and just preparing for whatever we can. I really do think it's going to be a chance to have travel be more meaningful in the future.
We'll certainly appreciate it a lot more once we can move and travel.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, Chris, what are your thoughts?
So I think what we're anticipating is that travel is going to be much closer to home. And, something that kind of, as we were talking about the Thomas Call treatments earlier, I'm based in Minneapolis. One of our beautiful hotels in Minneapolis is actually doing sauna aufguss. Sally and I experienced that in Austria. You don't have to go to Austria to experience it, but you can still have these experiences a little bit closer to home. And I think that most everyone globally is taking a hit financially from what we're all going through right now. So I think that the extended weekend will be kind of how we start to ease back in, perhaps a driving distance instead of a flying distance. As travelers want to get out, to Jackie's point, they're ready to move. They want experiences. They want to experience that joy of travel and sharing that with loved ones. And so I think that will be our first phase, and then we'll continue. So that's what we're seeing.
Thank you for that, Chris. And thank you to Jackie. I know you have to jump off the call, but thank you so much. I loved all your properties. Sally, do you have some thoughts? We can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay, I think we're all just too used to the Zoom interface. This is a very different interface. I want to say that I think in addition to hyperlocal, which there's no question we all agree upon initially, I think that travel will be a little more intentional and slowed down. People may be less inclined, I think, to jump from place to place to place, and more inclined to immerse when they go someplace. I believe that there will be some, maybe not as much solo travel, although because we've had a lot of time more on our own. So if to the extent that the solo travel that may take place would be to perhaps places like destination spas, but I think we'll see more of people going with either their families, multi-generational, or going with a girlfriend, or going, like going in pairs, but or, perhaps that kind of travel initially. I think that there will be a little bit of a celebratory feeling around travel. Kind of like, I've been through a lot. Let's go and celebrate. Life is short. We don't know how long life is. Let's really, let's really go with gusto, as it were. So that's just some of the things that, and I believe, like always, there are those intrepid hardcore travelers. I think that this is not great insight to say it's not all going to come back at once, but it's going to come back in dribs and drabs. And, speaking to that hardcore traveler, the people like myself, and Stephanie and Chris, who are itching to get out there and go places and spend our money, I think we'll be the first and foremost people to get out there, and then we'll, slowly but surely we'll see others joining. I know there's one more question. I think it's a great question I'm going to take a shot at, having to do that when we do properties start to reopen, or what the future of the spas are going to look like. And I have been having this conversation with a few people. I think that there is no question that it's going to be critical that spa and wellness properties, the consumer, any consumer to travel, is going to be concerned about their safety. But I think we're going to be even more concerned about the safety as it plays out in spas. The hygiene standards, I think that there are several organizations right now looking at standards that they can provide out there on top of a CDC type of recommendation. So what will it look like in terms of, and I think that the traveler, I know I've been on a lot of calls where we've been discussing this, that properties is going to be very important that properties provide information around their efforts to keep in terms of hygiene, in terms of health and sanitary practices, and what that looks like. And I do believe that in the not too far future, there will be some standards that will be coming out, whether it's through iSpa, whether it's through the Spa Association, whether it's through other organizations that are putting together spa product lines with hospitality companies. I know these conversations are taking place. And Stephanie, you may have even more information on this than I do.
I think you said that pretty succinctly. I don't know that there's a right answer yet, but I know that you should be reaching out to the people you're buying your cleaning products from, your associations. And I know there needs to be an industry-wide policy. I just don't know that it's come out yet, but I'm sure some really brilliant minds are working on that.
I'm, of course, anything I see, I'm happy to share. I think that in the spirit of all of us wanting to see the wellness tourism industry come back stronger than ever, I certainly pledge myself to share anything that, that I hear of. And I'm so delighted, Stephanie, that you would give us the opportunity to talk to you today.
I thank you both very much. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Sallie. Follow # Project Positive Planets. And Sallie will be doing this every Tuesday and taking us to a different destination. And
many Tuesdays. I don't know that I can say every Tuesday, but
some Tuesdays at 12 p.m.
Exactly.
And additionally, we have 3 other webinars scheduled this week. So tomorrow will be a focus on hydration at 12. Thursday will be our spa and wellness expert panel again, and we'll be talking more about that ROCO phase 2, what that looks like for reopening and planning. And then Friday, we will have our planet-based healing webinar. And I thank everyone for joining us, and we will see you soon. Have a great day.
Bye. Thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you, Sallie. Bye.